Welcome to this week's Pascal's China Lens. And this week we're going to talk about the business trends in China for 2021, next year. We're going to talk about innovation, about technology. I'm going to talk about the industries that we should really watch. And next week I'm going to have an episode on the societal changes of China. So how's China changing as a society? And so these trends for 2021 will be next week's episode. So do subscribe so that you can follow all the trends for 2021 coming up from China. The next thing I want to talk is about innovation and technology. And there, I believe 2021 will really be the year of 5G and blockchain. I mean, the whole Industry 4.0 is going to change China and the whole world everywhere, but 5G and blockchain is really going to get applied into society in 2021. And this is all about remote and about trusted. Remote with 5G and trusted with blockchain. Now, just last spring, 2020, at the National People's Congress, the government decided to invest $1.4 trillion, huge amount of money, into this digital age, into the Industry 4.0 for tomorrow, to make everything smarter. And for 2020, what we saw is that a lot of that investment went into 5G. And today, after 1 year, China already has 300 cities, large cities and smaller cities, 300 cities with full coverage of 5G. There's 175 million smartphones with 5G enabled smartphones that were sold in China. It's 80% of the world's 5G enabled communication is happening in China. So China has become the most connected place on the planet just in 2020. And that will reshape society in 2021. It means that suddenly it's not just about the infrastructure and being able to download movies faster. Now suddenly the whole industry can change because everything can happen remotely, more efficiently, more automated, and so on. We saw China the past 2 years invest a lot in new applications, and one of them is self-driving cars, which you need 5G because it's just too much information to be handled, and so 5G is helping with these self-driving cars, but we primarily saw a lot of remote environments taking shape. Think about telemedicine. If you remember, Wuhan in lockdown in January, February, March, April. Well, what happened is that these doctors couldn't reach into the city, into the province anymore of Hunan. And so telemedicine was the best choice. But also people were in lockdown, and so they could get diagnoses from doctors remotely. Doctors could work with each other with virtual reality goggles to share experiences. I mean, this whole 5G came to life. And I'm convinced, if you look at the numbers, I'm convinced that China has saved a lot of lives. I don't know how many, but they did save lives because of 5G already being operational in China. Cool stuff like remote surgery is happening now. That is not, of course, so much needed during the pandemic, but it's interesting because China has a lack of doctors. And because of that, a doctor that is maybe based 2,000 kilometers away can actually do the surgery on someone else in a remote village or a remote clinic somewhere. Very interesting trend happening. So it's all about remote. You see remote mining coming up, lots of remote environments that are not possible through 5G. And so this, in my view, will really change China in 2021. Now, the other thing is blockchain. And in 2019, just a year ago, Xi Jinping announced that blockchain will be this new trusted technology for China. And so when he gave the green light, all these industries, smart manufacturing, smart supply chain, think about smart finance, all these industries, they all started creating blockchain applications. This is just a year ago. And you see that in just 5-6 months, that was by spring this year, that China created the Blockchain Service Network, the largest blockchain network in the world, so that everybody could tap into it. And so this is an amazing concept that they're now suddenly changed into creating this environment. has a lot to do with the fact that trust is often a problem inside China, not just with China, inside China. And when it's about quality of products, quality of supply chain, quality of production, I mean, they need something, and blockchain is helping there. Alibaba with Ant Financial has created the biggest chain of all. They have the most patents in the world on the blockchain, and so they're using this in real life. These are not pilot or test projects. They're using it in insurance claims, for example, for hospitals and insurance companies, and then Alipay, and so there's many partners or people or entities involved. And so if they're all on that blockchain, then somehow you can create that technology, which means when somebody visits a hospital in China, they can pay with Alipay and only pay the part that they need to pay, because the insurance will automatically be deducted, because that all goes through this trusted environment. Another thing that is going to change the world is Trustful. This is just one example, but there's going to be many more of them. This is a technology coming out of Alibaba, which is about creating a blockchain environment for trade, specifically for cross-border trade. It means that when we want to do business with China, they will create all these blockchain environments or blockchain models and tokens so that you can actually have a safe transaction with China. It means clearance documents for customs, shipping documents, contracts, anything in trade that you would need, payments and so on, they're all going to be underlying with blockchain. And so if we want to do business with China in the future, we will almost have to go on the Chinese blockchain to make sure that we get our products or we get paid and so on. So very interesting things happening, and this is on a massive scale. What we need to remember is that 5G will create more remote environments. It's going to be more augmented, it's going to be more virtual, it's going to create a lot of new environments that we can live in, but it specifically is going to connect people from far away with home. And so that is that new 5G environment, and blockchain will create a more trustworthy industry than it is today. Two things China really needs. Now the next thing is about labor-intensive industries. And I want to talk about that because the image we often have when we talk or think about China is an image about lots of labor, cheap labor, and there's still a lot of poor people in China, so there's still a lot of cheap labor. And so all these cheap products are built in factories that basically are done by cheap labor. Now, this is changing in 2021. The trends of next year is really going to be about creating these labor-intensive industries and smarter industries, more customized productions, and also much more automated. One of the industries that I think will completely get disrupted in 2021, which we haven't talked much before about, is the whole agriculture or farming industry. And so you'll see that the whole IoT or whole industry 4.0, like face recognition, like temperature checking for pigs, for example, to know if they are pregnant or if they're healthy or so on, or cows, if they're actually eating enough and stuff like that. All that is possible with Industry 4.0, remotely can be used, and that will be used, is being used today already, also for crops, for more efficient farming, vertical farming. All these things are happening, and it's a combination of an old labor industry that is now transformed into a less people-intensive and more industry or technology-intensive industries. Big things are going to happen. Second thing is about healthcare, and as I said with 5G, a lot of it's going to go remote. But because there's lack of doctors, you're going to see this boom like nowhere else in China. Telemedicine is the opportunity of 2021 that I foresee in healthcare. And it's going to go so fast that there's going to be almost no Chinese that is not getting diagnosed or helped through their smartphone anymore after 2021. The other industry that will completely get disrupted is the logistics and smart supply chain. And we already saw the logistics in China with deliveries of couriers and food, like the Deliveroo of China, Meituan. We already saw that being like years ahead of the West. But this is about people often still delivering all these products. This is the last mile. But what's now going to change is everything before the last mile. This is everything between production, the factory and the last mile. And that will get much more intelligent, that part. That's the supply chain. And that will, with cool deliveries, I mean, deliveries that need for food that need to be on lower temperature and stuff like that, it's all going to be more optimized using technology, 5G, using a lot of IoT, using everything to track and control that it all comes out right. Big change is going to happen in 2021 in that area, supply chain. The next one, I think, is going to be manufacturing. Manufacturing is something that's already been going on for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, that China has automated their factories with a lot more robots. They actually tripled the number of robots in 4 years. And what you saw is that it's almost at the same level of a country like Germany these days. So it's really lots of automated factories. But now it's going to go into more customized production, into more personalized manufacturing. What that means is that when people buy online and they say, I want this kind of sneaker or this kind of shirt and I want this and that, or I want a product, a real physical product that you could use like a chair or whatever, and I want it a little bit different, you could just put that online, your request, and when you click, I want to buy that now, the factory already starts picking and placing it and producing it directly. Factories are going to be extremely smart, not because they became smarter in their operations and more efficient, but because they have knowledge from the market. And that is going to be one big difference. The last trend that I think we should watch in 2021 is the government services and smart city services. We don't talk often about it, but China has created an extremely smart city services, much better than the digitalization we see in many of the Western countries. And so we can learn from China, because not only have these smart cities become a lot smarter the last years, we've actually now seen that all these cities and these local mayors and local institutions have offered great services to their citizens. So a lot to learn there. To summarize, I would say that it's really about labor industries or labor-intensive industries that are becoming much more smarter. And so we shouldn't always look at self-driving cars and lots of things that are really cool in China, but look at those labor industries, because these are going to get transformed and become more competitive with the West. So this week we talked about innovation and technology, and I think 5G and blockchain are the two technologies to really watch and get inspired from when we look at China. Of course, the labor-intensive industries that are transforming now to become more smart, customized, personalized, and automated. All of these things are interesting. Next week, I'm going to talk about a societal change in China, which is all about inclusion. So do follow this channel, because next week is going to be interesting to see how China's society is changing. I wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I hope to see you very soon, just before the end of this year, with the last episode on Pascal's China Lens.